The first challenge on the STG hit list is Karous Easy Mode. It turns out this was, well, easy. So I moved on pretty quickly to the next challenge, which was a 1cc of Night Raid using an exploit where you hang out in the top left corner. That was different. It was around here that I realized that there's some serious quirkiness to the rank list, something which was confirmed by comments on my first video and on the Shmup's forums. So first, what's wrong with Karous Easy Mode? There's two things. It isn't immediately obvious what the challenge is. Karous has both an easy mode and an easy difficulty level. Easy mode only includes the first two stages of the game, while the easy difficulty level sets the density of bullets fired by enemies to the lowest setting. None of the other challenges on the list even use the easy difficulty. Okay, with the exception of Ikaruga, which has an easy difficulty that is still so hard that I hear its powdered form is used to lubricate industrial drill bits. The easy mode in Karous is equivalent to the training or practice modes in many of the other games on the list. It doesn't really fit. There's no standard criteria for submitting a challenge, and any challenge can have a million qualifiers tagged on at the end of it to defend why it's so high or so low on the list. So this brings us to Night Raid, which is actually an incredibly difficult shooter that happens to have a major exploit. The developers of Night Raid naturally assumed their players would be down here, giving them a chance to see and react to enemies and bullet patterns with room to dodge. What players discovered is that if they hang out in the top left corner, large sections of the game can be totally bypassed. You can just sit here and not take damage. However, there are sections that the strategy doesn't work for. What I found is that completing the game successfully using the exploit still requires a lot of route memorization practice, and you still need to take out some tough bosses more or less fair and square. So I did the Karous challenge and was partway through memorizing my way through Night Raid when I realized,
well, this sucks.
The STG rank list, taken at face value, involves a lot of doing one very specific challenge on a specific difficulty of a game, and it only includes arcade games, which excludes a ton of the best shmups out there that were made for console or PC. So I went back to the drawing board. I took a look at comments on the STG difficulty thread on the Shmup's forums to see if they had any suggestions for alternative or revised lists. And I wasn't disappointed. This is Pericles. Pericles is a fascinating character from the Shmup's forums. I won't do justice to his tale here, but I can at least give you the spark notes. Pericles was the preeminent shmupper on the forum. He had a jaw-dropping number of high scores and 1-credit clears of really difficult games that he seemed to churn out at an impossible speed. Also, his posts were written like this. In spite of a lamentable lack of time, a friendly competition incited me to investigate this splendid port one more time. Finally figured out the secret to the highest scores possible. A virtually perfect run could certainly score over 6.9 mil, mayhap even above 6.95 mil. That'd be an unspeakably egregious endeavor, however. Thus, I shall leave it at that. If I were to guess, I would say Pericles is the only person to ever 1-credit clear a shmup while attending a Ren fair. We're talking about Pericles because he made his own modified version of the STG list, using only challenges that he, ostensibly, cleared himself. This list, sometimes referred to as the Pericles list, is regarded by many on the forums to be a more balanced and consistent alternative to the original. But there's a problem with Pericles. The drama started in 2019 when NTSC-J, the curator of the Shmup Forum Hall of Records, made a post to explain why all of Pericles' high scores were being removed. There's a pretty vast web of controversy and conspiracy here, but the short version is that a number of Shmup veterans on the forum had started noticing some strange things in the replays that Pericles was posting to high scoreboards. This suspicion culminated when an anonymous user created a 90s era rap rival call-out style video set to the Matrix soundtrack, which was called Cheated to Death. The video and see what seems to be a good player avoiding bullets. To Shmup veterans, apparently, these clips are bizarre because they show a player of unrivaled skill performing twitchy, amateurish dodges, or in some case dodges that seem like they should only have been possible if the player was slowing down gameplay or splicing in loaded save states. That was my takeaway from the explanations in the forum anyway. NTSC-J contacts Pericles and says, hey, could you please send the raw data of one of your replays or a video that shows you in person getting a 1cc so we can put people's suspicions to bed? And Pericles basically says, forsooth, it doth seem to mine ears that verily mine replays are of a suspect nature. While I cheateth not, my proclivities prohibit acquiescing to thine requests, and thus I believe thou should removest mine scores to avoid further aggravation. Or, hey, I didn't cheat, but I'm also unwilling to prove I didn't cheat, so you should just remove my high scores. The problem with Pericles' forum post is actually pretty full of people supporting the guy and saying how much they like and respect him. Pericles even shows up partway through to try to explain himself a little bit, but nothing gets resolved. In the end, Pericles' scores were removed, and he disappeared completely from the forums in 2020 after making his 1500th post. There's still no incontrovertible proof that he did or did not cheat, and we'll probably never know. That's sadly the end of the tragedy of Pericles. Wherever he is now, I hope he's still shmupping while backstage during community productions of Shakespeare. Anyway, here's the Pericles list. Pericles used the STG rank list as a reference for gauging difficulty, and then he reordered and added additional items to it. His list, crucially, also contains console games. There's also another list that I won't talk nearly as much about, I promise, that was created by a forum member called ZPS. ZPS is the god of Toho. If you aren't familiar with Toho, you know what? There's no time right now. It's basically shmups from an alternate universe where every programmer was really into Sailor Moon. So ZPS also used the Japanese STG wiki list as the basis for their own 1cc challenge list, specifically for Toho games. So what I did was take the STG rank list, the Pericles list, the ZPS list, and some other feedback I saw in forum posts, and I made the pants list. The pants list is what I will personally be using and modifying from here on out in this challenge. The list contains a much wider range of games, and every challenge is just a bread and butter, 1 credit clear of a specific game with a specific difficulty, with none of the complex modifiers or weird outliers that were existent in the original list. Okay, so thanks to anyone still here after all the rambling. Next time we'll be attempting a 1 credit clear of Koryun, a side-scrolling cute-em-up made by Kaga Create for the TurboGrafx 16. If you'd like to see my full run of Karous Easy Mode, I'll leave a link to the replay in the description. I'll also leave a link to the pants list as it currently stands. Let me know your suggestions. See ya!